Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the ESL Hearthstone Legendary Series Redemption Tournament. I'm Osmakudi, once again joined by Frodan. And we just saw Chang take out 2-Wet in a pretty convincing series, 3-1.
Yep, that's right. Chang has a very different lineup than what most people have been expecting today.
Yeah.
He's got the OTK combo Warlock. He's got Miracle combo Warrior. And he's got Face, which combos really well with the opponent's health. Hunter.
Yeah, it worked out for him.
So he's got 3 combo decks.
Not sure how consistent it's going to be across the tournament, but
yeah,
it's really fun to watch.
It's really cool styles, and hopefully we can see a little bit similar to that. But looks like we've got another match here with a couple of class mirrors. We have Warlock and Hunter for Ignite, and Lemurian. The difference seems to be Mage and Warrior.
Yeah.
So Ignite being one of the few brave people, in fact, the only person to not bring Warrior.
And the only person to bring Mage. It's a pretty bold move.
Yes. In fact, we were expecting a lot of Warlocks and Hunters today and Warriors. That was probably the most typical lineup that we've seen. People feel like they gravitate closer towards Warrior, Hunter, and Warlock. And it's just so dominant. There's only There's only 3 non-Warriors, Warlocks, and Hunters.
Yeah.
We have 1 Mage, 1 Druid, and 1 Shaman.
It almost looks like nearly everybody's bringing the same decks, and they even listed them in the same order, which is pretty big deal. I actually think we have the media piece, which we saw earlier, which we didn't get to watch sound. We had a chance to talk with the players earlier in the week. A lot of the players are participating in today's Redemption series, this bracket. So why don't we go ahead and take a look at that one more time?
Sure.
I'm pretty confident. I performed pretty well on ladder, so...
I was a little disappointed in my week 3 performance, and I have a lot of revenge, I guess, to get.
Well, everybody wants to be the better player, but...
Really, these guys have made it through open groups, so that means they're winners. And so I respect everyone's level of play.
I'm very competitive, but there's sort of a lack of motivation when you don't have a team or a salary to keep you going.
I don't have anything to lose. I have everything to gain. I don't know. I don't have a team. I'm just some guy that plays Hearthstone, so...
I mean, playing Hearthstone, I don't think it's that difficult of a game. You just have to count to 30.
They all terrify me.
And it would just be awesome that I won probably one of the top tournaments that is offered in the Hearthstone community next to the World Championship.
Never been to the US, and I would love to. It's been a dream since I was a kid. Other than that, it will also be my first big one. It would mean a lot to me as well to my career.
It'd be great. I haven't won a tournament. Haven't won a major tournament yet.
It would change my life a lot.
Anything can happen in this game.
In the words of Bunny Muffins, all you got to do is count to 30.
Seems pretty hard for him, though. He hasn't been able to count to 30 very successfully many times on the stream. Although he has in the open portions. And it's a little bit unrepresentative of how he actually has been able to play through these really tough qualifiers.
Yeah.
So those are fighting words coming out from those. Some of the players are like, well, it's pretty easy. Well, if it's so easy, then why aren't you doing it? And I think it just goes to show you there is an element of how things pan out, how the actual random elements end up coming together. But one thing is for sure, some of these players are definitely the best of the best. You look at guys like Savitz, who's always doing really well in a lot of tournaments and a constant threat. You're looking at some of the other players too, Strifecore and Shocky. Like those are some of the invites. And then you have some of the in-qualified players like Ignite, who's always gone through some of those gauntlet of qualifiers and getting through Seat Story Cups, being able to go through all these sort of tournaments in the past. And then 2-Wet performing pretty well consistently, but unfortunately falling short today.
Yeah, Osaka as well we'll be seeing later on the weekend,
Yep.
who made it through qualifier. He wasn't an invited player. He had a streak there where he made it through a lot. So, I mean, lots of great names to still come. We've seen him through the Legendary Series regular season weeks, and we'll see him upcoming this weekend as well to see who's going to join those players making it. But next matchup is going to be Lemurian versus Ignite. We talked a little bit about Ignite, but Lemurian, he's a player that not many people knew about, and we actually saw him a little bit in that clip saying he doesn't really have anything to lose. He has everything to gain in this situation. He says he's just a guy that plays Hearthstone, and that's sort of true. I mean, he says he's pretty well off in his life at the moment. He plays Hearthstone as a hobby, just happens to be good at it, and I mean, he said it would change his life. Getting a trip to California, getting to compete for $25,000. I actually think he lives in California, so it wouldn't be that far away. But
Well, ESL would be ecstatic.
yeah. I mean, they're excited about Raynat too. Who's like a 40-minute drive away from here. He probably would have come up anyway. But still, it's a big experience for guys like him who aren't as well known to make it to a big event like this, get that exposure.
Yeah, meanwhile, Ignite, don't let that chair fool you. He's not on Team Liquid. Ignite is Team Less.
Mm-hmm.
And he's looking for an opportunity to potentially break out onto the scene again. Despite being one of those players who's always been around, you know, he's always performed pretty decently. It's just he hasn't had too much of a notable performance. I guess the Seed Story Cup, where he threw one of the matches against Osaka, where he unfortunately did the same mistake that a lot of other people do, which is kill your own Akanai while using the circle of healing.
Yeah, with the spell power.
And Ignite is all the way from Portugal, so he's playing at really odd hours. He has to really make sure that this goes well, and even if it does go well, you know, it's a pretty long trip all the way to California as well from Europe.
But he said it'd be a good experience, and he's no stranger to qualifying and then having to play a lot of games to make it to a tournament. Like Seastar Cup, he was one of the couple qualifiers to make it, and he made it all the way to, I believe it was round of 8 or 16. Round of 8, I think.
Round of 8.
Yeah.
And he got stopped in the round of 8, but he should have beat Osaka.
Yeah.
And then he would have faced against 6-0. Maybe he would have beaten 6-0, maybe he wouldn't. But you know, that's for a parallel universe to figure out.
He still had a successful run. Yeah. And these guys' decks, Warlock Hunter, and the oddball deck for both these guys is going to be Warrior for Lemurian, and of course the Mage for Ignite. You think he's going to bring Freeze Mage?
Ignite, there's a high chance of it. Freeze Mage is one of the few decks that can shut down Patron Warrior because they have to, you know, same rules. They have to attack into the armor of the ice barrier. You can shut it down with AoE flame strikes. So there's definitely ways for you to deal with that, especially if you anticipate Zoo and the Patron Warrior.
Yeah.
You can definitely capitalize on the Freeze Mage. I haven't been really high on Freeze Mage against Handlock, though. I feel like Handlock's gotten pretty good against it overall.
Yeah. A lot of Handlocks, at least some of the lists I've seen lately have been running double heal bot as well.
Right.
Which is just crushing.
You know, a lot of them still run Void Callers, so Void Callers are tough to deal with because if you Flame Strike them or just Doomsayer them, then like Mal'Ganis comes out and you're just like, what? So I personally not really a big fan of that. I know Ignite loves Freeze Mage, though, just one of his favorite classes. Or favorite archetypes. I'm somewhat glad that he chose not to bring Priest because I always think that's one of his limiting factors. But Priest is also a fun class to watch.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, it is.
Nowadays, Priest, I think, is a lot more fun to watch than it used to be.
The moment people figure out that, you know, Dragon control is possible, they'll probably start gravitating towards that. But for now, Dragon decks just haven't hit a really comfortable sweet spot yet. I'm waiting, though. We have seen Patron Warrior. And we have seen Control Warrior. We haven't seen a Dragon Warrior, though, yet. So maybe one of these Warrior decks between Lemurian, Savitz, and Trump, it could be busted out. But I have to imagine Savitz is going to play Patron Warrior because it seems like up his alley.
Yeah, I was going to say, we got plenty of opportunities left today to see more Warrior decks. But I feel like with all the popularity of Warriors, though, the strength of Freeze Mage is going down a little bit. Now, you look at the most popular decks on ladder right now, it's a Warrior, Warlock, Hunter are the three, and two of those are really tough for Freeze Mages to be able to do with being Hunter and Warrior. Mid-range Hunter maybe not as much, but they can burst you down from high health. They have a lot of damage from hand, which can sometimes be a big weakness of Freeze Mage. So it could be a liability if that's what he goes with, which seems to be what he leans towards when he picks Mage.
Hunter is really powerful to climb on ladders. Still really good against a lot of the control decks, or even the mid-range decks like Druid. It's great against that. The Warriors you can shut down, and it's always just really resilient against the metagame. Patron Warrior start things off for the Lemurian. He's not going to go for the control variant. And Ignite with a Leopard Gnome and a Freezing Trap. So it seems like it leans over towards the mid-range, but the Leopard Gnome does imply that it's aggressive Hunter, right? It's face.
Yeah, I've seen face Hunters that tech in a Freezing Trap. I've also seen mid-range Hunters that get a little bit faster in putting cards like Leopard Gnomes or one Glaive Zuka. So, and even Abusive Sergeant I've seen in mid-range Hunter sometimes. So there usually is a pretty distinct line between the two. There's cards that definitely identify one over the other. And the cards like Savannah Highmane, or pretty much anything above like 5 mana that isn't Loatheb, which is usually cut anyway.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Big Knight. Looks like he's having a little bit of trouble stabilizing his webcam. Because you don't, it's like you don't even think about it. You play Leopard Gnome turn 1. It's just how you do it. So his opponent doesn't have Cool Taskmaster. He almost runs away with the game because his opponent takes too much damage.
Yeah.
Realistically speaking, though, Lemurian's got plenty of options. Got Coin Cool Taskmaster. Next turn, gaining armor is okay against Face Hunter. And then Shrouding Berserker just played out straight as a minion is sometimes okay as well.
Yeah.
Actually, a lot of times it's okay because they can't reach that 4 health for 3 mana.
He does have a lack of weapons, and even though weapons sometimes aren't the best thing in the world against Face Hunters, just because, like the same reasoning why a lot of rogues won't keep Deadly Poison in their opening hand, because you're overkilling things and you'd rather have creatures like Cool Taskmaster deal with it. It's a way for you to race. You can't really race with this deck without weapons. Like, your weapons are sort of your activators for all your creatures.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And a lot of times in Face Hunter matchup with Grim Patron Warrior, it does come down to a race. You need to just be able to outdamage them, or force them to trade with cards like Frothing Berserker in order to save yourself some damage to draw into bigger combos. Sludge Belcher.
Yeah, Sludge Belcher is a callback more towards Just Saiyans version.
Yeah.
That I know Reynad used it, for example, in Patron Warrior. It does have that 3 attack, right? So
Gets buffed by
you
the
get
War
that
Song.
buff. You get that charge buff from the War Song Commander, meaning that it can attack that turn. Really interesting to see how we're starting to see flavors and differences. You know, is he more combo oriented? Is it more board stabilization oriented? Good stuff all around.
Well, it's a pretty cool deck in the fact that you see these variations from the beginning. You just see each variation refined in certain ways. Like the Sludge Belcher was one of the first cards that people decided to put in. And in the very beginning list, there was like Commanding Shout in nearly every single deck. And the branches have just sort of gone out, and now there's like extremes of each one. Like Chang's would be the extreme of the combo variation, and like Just Saiyans would be the extreme of sort of, I would call it the more conservative road, where you don't run Commanding Shout and you run a lot of mid-range heavy creatures, like Paladin Shredder and Sludge Belcher. And so they're just sort of branching off each other and becoming refined in their own ways.
Yeah. Leivzuka will allow a trade into this Frothing Berserker.
That's slightly awkward.
Oh, it's okay, actually, because now you can just use the Abusive Sergeant and the Leivzuka. And then if he has Deathbite, he has to take double damage from the Knife Juggler.
That's true.
So you can go for that.
I think he, I don't know. Judging by his pause here, I think he might have been hoping to trade with creatures.
Well, I mean, he still can. Well, I think you attack into it first with your own weapon and then the Abusive Sergeant.
Then Abusive Sergeant, yeah.
Okay, well, he's definitely going to hero power, so he's choosing that first. I'm assuming this Knife Juggler's going to attack as well. He's afraid of, the Acolyte Whirlwind. Acolyte Whirlwind would be really, really devastating.
Yeah.
What I don't think you do is leave the Frothing Berserker up.
Yeah, what I don't think you do is just pass.
Really? Wow.
Ah!
Oh my goodness. I feel like this has a lot of potential to backfire if his opponent had Acolyte Whirlwind.
I mean, it's called Face Hunter, not Trade Hunter.
You're right.
Sometimes you do just have to go for it. But, I mean, if you think about it, it's what am I missing by trading here? What power turns can he make on turn 4? He can do Acolyte and Whirlwind, like you said. But what else is he going to do besides Deathbite? And if he Deathbites, he's not going to really be able to clear anything off the board other than the Knife Juggler, which would have been cleared anyway if he had left the Frothing Berserker up. I don't know I didn't explain that very well because it didn't make sense, but either way, he's getting like the same amount of damage to face.
Okay.
If
Yeah,
that
you're
makes
right.
sense. Either way, the Frothing Berserker is dying.
That's true.
It's just forcing him to trade into it instead of killing it himself.
Well, he saves damage from his own face, and he gets more damage in because he's like the way Ignite went about it. He actually got more damage in because he attacked with the minions and the weapon,
Yeah.
as opposed to trading it in and then letting the Knife Juggler get killed by the Death Bite.
Yeah.
So Lemurian took a little bit more damage this way. He's gonna use the Fire War Axe to activate the Death Bite and execute, and that's definitely a good opportunity. But Ignite still has some charge damage, and he is 2 damage off right now.
Well, Freezing Trap's probably the most useless draw he could possibly get.
Yeah, it's just not damage.
And this could be problematic. It's going to put him at 3, but he needs to draw dark damage next turn, or there could be an opportunity for Lemurian to stabilize. He's going to play.
Right.
He's going to play Sludge Belcher here.
Sludge Belcher doesn't protect Kill Commander Quick Shot though,
Yeah, that's yeah.
or even an Owl.
But he's thinking, well, no, because the last turn he actually didn't have enough mana to use direct damage plus hero power. So if he had, is there any merit to not playing Sludge Belcher here and trading in and just going for armor?
So. I guess you could play the Warsong Commander and try to draw with the Acolyte, but it's just not worth it.
Yeah. It's not it.
You can hear him about power him down to 1, so he was going to want to do that. If he attacks into the Sludge Belcher, that's 5, that's 1. No, it's just a little bit off.
Now, the big question going through his mind right here is, how else does he spend the remaining 5 mana of his turn?
I mean, Freezing Trap isn't awful if you just try to set it up so that way your opponent can't trade into it easily.
Yeah, but I think eventually he knows that he's going to have to get to this Sludge Belcher anyway.
It's true.
Because there's no reason at all to attack into a Freezing Trap with your Sludge Belcher, or to attack into any trap really with the Sludge Belcher, to even check for explosive.
Right.
So he knows that since he's going to have to get through it anyway, he might as well just kill it now to open up more opportunities for himself to get lethal next turn.
This is so tight. If you bounce the slime back, it's going to cost 3 mana. He's going to want to play it again. But he also wants to armor up.
He has to.
He has to armor up. So he can't. Why did he attack then? He attacked because he doesn't want to activate the Eaglehorn Bow. But there's so many ways for him to die right here. Oh, no, he is dead actually.
Yeah, he's dead with the Unleash, yeah. Yeah, there wasn't really any point of direct damage through charge or through spells would have killed him because it matches up.
1 damage.
Unleash.
Might as well play Stone
Hound.
Tusk more.
Yeah.
The Hound.
Well, looks like Ignite is going to take game number 1 of Lemurian. And Face Hunter seems to be more popular choice today. I think people are realizing that they were expecting mid-range Hunter to be the more popular variation of Hunter.
Well, it is on ladder for sure.
Yeah.
Face Hunter's still really good for ladder because it's very time efficient. I know I'm actually starting to see so much variation in Patron Warrior that it's very surprising that people overall just generalized and said Patron's now good against Face Hunter, because the problem with combo decks as anything is that pressure is just really hard to stabilize, especially with a class that leverages their own health to try to gain board position. Yeah. This is the same as Rogue essentially against the Hunter, although you have more ways to gain health with like Armor Smiths. That's usually sometimes the way you can get it. But even then, sometimes Rogues had Farseer to help gain a little bit of life.
You have more ways to gain health, but less ways to race, I think.
It depends on the deck, I guess.
Yeah.
Rogue in general was really powerful for racing because of the oil. And I always felt that Patron specifically this type of warrior struggled against Face Hunter. That was one of the biggest fears for a long time. And I know some of the people are starting to change their train of thought. Like, the Rat was who got #1 Legend with the Patron Warrior. Yeah. He's like, no, this is good against Face Warrior or Face Hunter. And I'm like, what? It was like hard for me to imagine that, but he's the one who got #1 with it. So he probably feels the most comfortable in that matchup.
There's also cards that you can put in. You mentioned like it's hard to give all those decks one identity.
Right.
Because
are they playing, Sludge Belchers? Are they playing more
Unstable
combo,
ghouls.
right? Unstable ghouls.
Yeah.
Are they playing the Inner Rage? Or are they playing Slam, which is just kind of like a 2-damage Dark Bomb, right?
Yeah, like a deck like Chang's that we saw earlier would have a completely different matchup against Face Hunter as like this version, which is close to Just Saying. So
It might die, honestly, if he faced off against Chang,
yeah,
because Chang has like Gadget Sand and Gromosh.
Yeah.
You just sit there with super expensive cards, and you just keep taking 3 damage a turn.
yeah. All right, well, Ignite's going to throw out the Warlock next, and Lemurian's actually going to switch it up, and he's going to queue in his Hunter instead. So now this matchup depends on what kind of Warlock it is, and also what kind of Hunter it is. Because Face Hunter does great against like Zoo, Mid-range Hunter not as well against Zoo, whereas it's sort of the opposite for Handlock, where Face Hunter doesn't do necessarily as well against Handlock, but Mid-range Hunter does.
Hunt begin.
Wow, well, 2 Molten Giants up against Hunter, and a Dark Bomb. I don't mind just tossing the Shadow Flame back and starting off with just that.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if he tossed back Dark Bomb, given how good it is against, the Knife Juggler, or even like how Huffer might come out,
Yeah.
Houndmaster. It's very useful.
I think this is one of those matchups where the Mulligans is actually a big deal. If I think he would have kept both Molten Giants if the Hunter had kept all his cards.
Oh, interesting.
Because the reason being is if the Hunter likes his hand, you know that he's going to be putting a lot of pressure on early, which the Molten Giants are going to come in more handy. But he saw him throw away most of his hand except for one card. So he figured, I can get away with getting rid of one of these Molten Giants and getting something a little bit slower. Well, I mean, slower against Hunter, like a Sludge Belcher, or even maybe like a Twilight Drake could be good if the Hunter's not happy with his hand.
Sure. The thing that I've always felt about the Molten Giants is just, at one point, you're not going to play the slow game against Hunter. They're just always going to pressure you too much, so I'd rather go for a 2-turn win. Just like play Molten Giants, hit the face,
Yeah.
and then just be defensive and hit the face again. And there it is.
He got it back anyway.
Do you think he has room to tap at all?
Oh, yeah.
He taps, he plays Mountain Giant, he plays Big Game Hunter, challenges the Misha.
Well, I guess at this point he doesn't
It's
know.
pretty close.
Yeah.
I would say that there's just so many ways for your opponent to deal with Big Game Hunter. For example, there's weapons. There's also Quick Shot.
Yeah.
Would you be happy to utilize Big Game Hunter to effectively gain life? That's what Big Game Hunter is. It's
Yeah.
like it gains life, and on the off chance, it actually kills off your opponent's Misha.
Yeah.
The thing is, if you tap, you're not just taking 2 damage and the 4 from Misha. You're saying Misha's going to get 8 damage because you have to take the damage twice. Mountain Giant takes the turn to play.
Yeah.
So you're effectively going to be at 20 health or less the following.
Yeah. The one thing that he's thinking about really extensively here is how happy am I with what I have right now? If I play Big Game Hunter, will I ever find time later in the game to tap into things that I really need, like activators for these Molten Giants?
Well, he's got Sludge Belcher.
Yeah,
so
but he still needs like Sunfree Protected Defender of Argus to make sure that once the Hunter gets to his Sludge Belcher, he has actually something to fall back on.
Yeah, that's true.
Because Molten Giants by themselves aren't what makes Molten Giant strong against Hunter. It's the fact that you can make a big wall out of him. But I think I agree with you in the fact that if he taps, he's not only not saving that amount of life, but he's putting himself in an even worse position off next turn.
And now he's got Ancient Watcher with the Silence.
Okay. This matchup is a dance. It's a delicate balance. This is why. This is one of the reasons why I think Mid-range Hunter is. Why a lot of people think Mid-range Hunter is strong against Handlock, because they can build up a big board, and then put you in a situation where you can't play Molten Giants in a wall, and then kill you in one turn. Base Hunters don't have that luxury.
It's so interesting though because he has Glaive Zuka in his mid-range Hunter deck.
I think it's. I've seen a lot of mid-range Hunters have one Glaive Zuka.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Just to mix it up?
Well, and also, it's such a strong early game play for. Oh man, there was. I forgot his name, and I hate that because I always love to give people credit that give me good ideas. There was a Reddit post on the competitive Hearthstone subreddit where this guy said he got Iced Fat, I think. Yeah, Ice. PA, bat with the PH. No, that was it. That was his name. I believe it was. He
Don't
put
be
in.
mean.
He got top 100 legend, which I mean, this early in the season, there's a lot of people that fluctuate between top 100 and not top 100. But he had some really great reasoning behind the Gladzuka. So go ask him because I forgot what the actual point was.
So you're gonna set all that up just to say, ask him.
Yeah, exactly. I'll get it after the break. I'll bring up that red thread, but I was actually thinking about it on the way up. I know I hyped it up a lot and then just let everybody down, but
Double big game hunter. There's no Shadow Flame either.
yeah, he's in like perfect range right now. You want to put him like 1 or 2 mana, Molten Giant plus 1 or 2 mana to make it so they can't make Q swing plays with either double Molten Giant or Molten Giant Shadow Flame.
So Misha attacks into that. The Scientist kills off the slime. He's got 4, 6, 9 damage. Yeah, gonna be a little bit short. Drop the high main.
Yep.
At this point, do you hold back the attacks?
Okay, so he'd be at 7 mana virtually with the coin, because I'm sure he'd be keeping track of the coin. So at 14 health, he'd be able to play Molten Giant.
And Ancient Watcher. Yeah, he can play Molten and Taunt anyways.
Yeah.
You might as well start pushing the damage.
If he plays Molten and Taunt, you kill him anyway. 1 taunt. If he plays Molten and 1 taunt, you kill him. So I don't think, as long as you have lethal on the board, I don't think you give him stronger plays than Molten Giant. So I think that was a good play holding off there. But it's really tough. It's tough to balance. It's tough to realize when you should start pushing through.
Yeah, he might be just dead here. Trying to look at if there's any other play. Oh, he could have tapped for a Sun Fury. That's about it.
All right. Well, he goes
Too much
ahead.
pressure.
Indeed. Hunter has a pretty high win rate so far today in the first day of the ESL Legendary Series Redemption Tournament. 3-0.
That's right. Warriors not had that kind of record, but Chang kind of messed it up by playing this really weird, janky deck with Miracle. Well, he's got Gadget and
Auctioneer, Dragon Eggs.
Dragon Eggs and Patron Warrior.
Randomly. It does, I'm trying to think what it
man.
meshes
It's
with.
got to throw in some dragons in there. The Chinese people, they love their dragons, dude.
Yeah, they really do. But series tied 1-1, so we're going to move into the third game here. Lemurian still has, still got to find a win with the Warlock that we saw earlier, the Warrior that we saw earlier, and a Warlock deck. And Ignite. I haven't seen the Mage yet. Still curious what kind of Mage it actually is.
It's probably Freeze Mage, but he still doesn't necessarily want to play against Mid-Range Hunter because it's really easy for the Mid-Range Hunter just to pressure for the same reason. The hero power naturally puts you on a clock.
Yeah.
I would have to imagine that Ignite might just queue up the handlock again.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, no, the Hunter's gone, right? So, yeah, you can
Hunter's-
play Freeze Mage a little bit more liberally now.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. I don't mind Freeze Mage here, if that's the case. If he's just playing Mech Mage, then something else. If he's playing Tempo Mage, which I know a lot of Europeans really like still,
Or Hyper Aggro Mage.
then, yeah. I don't mind. I don't mind it. Personally, I think it's fine if you queue up the handlock again, though. Against what the other Warlock can do, you're fine. And against Control Warrior or against Patron Warrior, you're fine. You know Patron Warrior is what he has.
Yeah. I really like handlock in general right now. I think this is really bold statement to make, but I think it is the strongest deck currently in the meta right now. I mean, of course, the meta shifts every day. There will be a lot of pro players that tell you, especially not only in ladder, but also in the competitive scene. Somebody who plays in a tournament one day will then realize the next day that, hey, maybe the meta has already shifted and I need to change up my whole lineup. I mean, we were here in the studios, 4 days ago? And we saw completely different lineups from a lot of these players. Almost every player brought Druid, where today only one has Druid. It was rare to see, we didn't see nearly this many Warriors or Hunters, and the Warriors and Hunters we did see were like sort of half and half, Control, Patron, and almost all the Hunters we saw were mid-range. So it shifted a lot since last weekend. And Warlock versus Warlock.
Yeah. Is Lemurian going to bring the Zoo or the handlock? Because we've seen handlock twice today. No, we saw the combo lock.
Yeah.
So what's it going to be coming from Lemurian?
Zoo.
Am I saying his name right?
Lemurian. Yeah. Dude, the
Lemurian.
Lemurian is like a weird cult that exists in San Diego, in the outer
Does it?
the outskirts of San Diego, like the mountainous area.
What do they believe in?
I don't know.
Lemurs?
Yeah, lemurs. And the reason why he chose Lemurian is because one day he was like riding his dirt bike through the hills, the Lemurian country, like where
And
the
he's, you know
people
what? I
live.
really like this place.
No, he almost got killed.
Oh. Oh, dang.
Yeah, and it was
intense.
sort of like an homage to
To like a really tough time in his life.
or a really great time in his life. Maybe he's just like
I don't know if getting almost killed is a great time in your life.
maybe he's an
most of the
adrenaline
time.
junkie.
It could be. I mean, some of the most exciting parts of your life might.
Yeah.
Realistically.
I mean, look at that face. Look at all the foliage behind him. You can just tell that he just loves adrenaline.
Yeah. It also
Dan is
looks a
toiling
little,
with
it
his
looks
own
a little
emotions.
bit like a green screen, I gotta admit.
Yeah, it really does.
Like one of those, like you just installed your webcam behind you and you're
Mhm.
like, oh, I get to play with all these different settings. Look, I'm on a roller coaster. Now I'm a shark.
Well, you know, you know that famous photography saying, if it doesn't look like you're in front of a green screen, then it's not a good picture.
I don't know that, but
You're just not into the
but
whole
now my
photography
Instagram
scene.
game has jumped up
Indeed.
significantly.
No, I completely made that up, so I wouldn't give that any merit.
Oh, you're a good caster.
I know. Thank you.
So Ignite properly makes the read. This was actually a very good call by Ignite. He kept Big Game Hunter and the Twilight Drake on the chance that his opponent wasn't playing Zoo. Oh, actually, sorry, you can keep the Twilight Drake, but like you kept the Owl and the Big Game Hunter, which are really important against Twilight Drake and the Mountain Giants.
Yeah.
So if he didn't do that, then he would have been at a pretty significant disadvantage.
So, Dan, I think over the entirety of our casting time together, Handlock versus Handlock is probably the matchup we've casted the most.
I thought it was Control Warrior versus Handlock.
That or Handlock versus Handlock. I think they're about even. But there's a lot of intricacies that are involved with Handlock versus Handlock matchups that are tough to see on the surface. Like the difference between playing Twilight Drake and or Mountain Giant on if they curve out at the same time, like which one do you play first. Or later in the game, like overextending, like when to not flood the board or when to flood the board. Twilight Drake is usually a good first choice because your opponent has to have 2 answers for it. They have to have like Owl plus Mortal Coil.
It's interesting, though, that he forewent a turn 4 play, though, to get this Drake out a little bit earlier. So that way he can meet his opponents. Like, say he's anticipating Mountain Giant, then he can Big Game Hunter and go past that. But he also has another opportunity to save that. He's got Power Overwhelming.
Yeah.
What is that? That's interesting.
Yeah.
I
mean,
wonder if
he
he
probably runs a piece of combo, like Leroy.
Right.
Or
Leroy.
Arcane.
Do you think he plays the Faceless Manipulator?
He might. I've seen Warlocks that don't go all in on the combo, like we saw with Changsec earlier, play like Thorsan, Leroy, Faceless, 1 Power Overwhelming, because if they reduce any piece of the combo, it ends up being like a 20-point burst on, because you have to reduce a piece. It ends up being a 20-point burst, which is pretty big deal. But it's kind of unreliable. I think that was actually, you mentioned how he put out the Twilight Drake as a 4-8. I think that's it's a dead giveaway that you have BGH. The reason being is because the reason why you don't want to play a 4-8 Twilight Drake is because it matches so poorly against Giants. So it's a big giveaway they have BGH because you know that whatever he plays, you have an answer to it.
It's a good point, TJ. Now, this is really awkward because the Owl doesn't have anything that's contested by it. He tapped. He has 2 Mountain Giants. Can't play either of them. Has to instead most likely drop Ancient Watcher, but if he also doesn't drop any minions, he can play Mountain Giant plus like Taunt next turn or something equivalent to that. Maybe Iron Beak, Owl, or Ancient Watcher.
But similar to a lot of mirror matchups, giving your opponent the initiative can be really devastating in this matchup.
He makes the trade. So he plays around Hellfire.
Yeah.
Okay.
You ever think about the real-life implications of Hearthstone cards? Like how Iron Beak Owl trades evenly with a Twilight Drake?
Well, if you want to really start getting realistic, someone drew a picture of Big Game Hunter versus Ragnaros, and they scaled it according to World of Warcraft. It's a little bit like an asteroid to Jupiter. I would imagine that's kind of the proportions of what it is. And yet, all he does is just shoot him in the butt.
With a little bullet.
It's a pretty big bullet, to be honest. It's like the size of his head.
Well, in comparison to Ragnaros, it's still a...
Well, he's got his own owl, but he can't really deal with it beyond that, so he can tap and play a mountain giant instead.
Doesn't really match up against the Twilight Drake, but it's about the strongest play that he can make that turn.
I mean, Ignite's fully equipped. He's got double Big Game Hunter locked and loaded.
Yeah. Yeah, double Big Game Hunter is becoming pretty standard just because the mirror matchup is so prevalent right now on the ladder. And, I mean, even outside of that, you're almost always going to get value out of both BGHs because of how popular, like even just against Zoolock, a lot of them run Mal'Ganis plus Dr. Boom, so you're always going to get value. Or if a big Void Terror comes out, there's just so much value in having double BGH.
Mortal Coil first, just to draw. He's going to go for a board clear. Ooh, interesting. So he's got his own Mountain Giant follow-up turn.
But you want to space your threats in this matchup.
Right.
Because playing double threats on a board where he has a Mountain Giant that you can't take care of this turn, just asking to get Shadow Flame.
Ignite, dropping the Ancient Watch because his hand's going to be too full otherwise. That he doesn't necessarily have to tap, because if he taps, he's going to have too many cards. Now we have Lemurian with another Mountain Giant. And here's another interesting question. Does Ignite even use his second Big Game Hunter, or would he just cash in on the existing threats and play like his own Mountain Giant? So I feel like he doesn't have to play the second Big Game Hunter, because he knows there's other big threats in the deck. If his opponent has Mal'Ganis, or if his opponent has a Dr. Boom or Molten Giant, he can get past that as well.
Well, either play you make, you're playing into something. Because if you play second BGH, you play into Hellfire. But if you play your own threat into his threat,
into a Big Game Hunter?
Unless you're trading into it, you're playing into Big Game Hunter yourself, or you're playing into Shadow Flame.
Right.
So, I mean, I like your point in that if you're going to play into something anyway, you might as well save Big Game Hunter for something that's going to be a bigger threat later on. Bigger swing. Because killing a Molten Giant later on in the game could most likely will be a bigger deal than killing a Mountain Giant at this stage. Because killing a Molten Giant later,
enough. It might help you push for lethal.
Yeah, it could help you secure a win, where right now it's just helping you secure the board. Which you can't win without securing the board, but still, it could be a higher impact later if you have the tools to deal with it in a different way right now.
I still like to see some kind of life tap this turn. I guess you could play Mountain Giant and Big Game Hunter.
Yeah.
But then your opponent can Hellfire Big Game Hunter you right back.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, so Mountain Giant here implies that he's going to go for both.
I've got the beast in my sight.
This is sort of like...
Two Big Game Hunters. This is the time where we need to see the games to see Lemurian's face.
Yeah. I'd imagine his reaction would actually be exactly what his still photo shows.
Yeah. People who give the blue steel look tend to do that no matter what.
Yeah.
It's kind of like how Masan does it too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now he's got his own Big Game Hunter, but...
Oh, does he? This is what handlock versus handlock has become.
Yeah. But he can't use Hellfire as reliably.
Soon people are going to take out Mountain Giants just to not give swing plays.
That's why I really liked Void Caller for a while.
Yeah.
Demons. There it is, another giant.
That's why I really think the Dragon Warlock.
I've got the beast in my sights. And they just keep hearing that, man.
Yeah.
What I think we've heard that more than we've heard, you know, the Grim Patron telling everybody get in here.
It's a bold statement to make. It's a bold claim. Today?
Today?
Probably.
Yeah.
Total over the past since Grim Patron was released? Probably not.
Are you serious? Big Game Hunter's been out for like almost 2 years now.
Since Grim Patron was released. Like, it might even be close. Because on average in a Grim Patron
I want to
game,
see how many times. Yeah. I feel like that's definitely something Blizzard would would do.
I think it's an interesting
It's like-
statistic.
Hey guys, we still haven't had any news about deck slots, but here's a weird statistic about Grid patrons. Because like they can't actually promise anything, right? But they'll
Yeah.
tell you like random statistics that are kind of cool.
To be honest, that would tide me over. I'd forget all about deck slots. Someone told me a random fact about how many times group patrons said everyone get in here.
Shields up.
All right, well, this sets up a Hellfire potentially. Attack that Hellfire. No second Owl though.
What else do you do if you Hellfire, though?
Molten Giant? Oh, you
Can't.
can't.
No.
Yeah, you're right. Dr. Boom then.
Yeah, I think Dr. Boom, you have to.
So many.
I mean, not
The
have
thing,
to,
the thing
but
about Dr. Boom is that it easily gets preyed on as well. Because your opponent can clear the board pretty easily with just like what's on there.
I don't know if Dr. Boom's really ever easy to remove. Every time I see Dr. Boom, even if I have like the perfect answers, I'm still a little bit pissed. I think a lot of people can relate to that. Like even if you have like double Armor Smith, double Acolyte on the board, and you have like a second Deathbite's charge and an Execute in your hand, and you just attack face, like the bombs hit perfect ones on like both of your Acolytes, give you 2 draws, and you execute the Dr. Boom cleanly and have like a superior board. I'm still just a little bit pissed inside.
What about if you mind control attack and you just steal Dr. Boom? Then the Boombots
Then the
revenge kill.
Boombots kill your Dr. Boom. They hit for 3 and 4 respectively, and then you just basically... no, then it'd still kind of be like a BGH in that sense. Because you played
All
up
right, this is what happens. You play Major Domo in your deck.
Okay.
You play you play the Sylvanas,
Yeah.
and of course Major Domo somehow gets revived because you resurrected him as priest.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know, something like that, or last Ancestor's Call.
Yep.
Then the Boombots. You steal Dr. Boom. The Boombots revenge kill Dr. Boom, but in the process also kill Sylvanas. And then he steals your Major Domo, and then you kill Major Domo and you kill Ragnarsson. How about that? Is that a clean way to deal with Dr. Boom?
That is the cleanest way I've ever heard of anybody being able to deal with Dr. Boom. That's the only way that I'd be able to clear Dr. Boom and still feel happy about my life
All
afterwards.
right. I'm glad I can make you happy.
It always brings sunshine to me. On
So
a rainy
after
day.
a long deliberation of completely nonsensical things, Ignite, in the meantime, was really thinking about Hardbatt's turn and decided to play Dr. Boom. And by doing so, it's introduced this tight scenario where Lemurian somewhat wants to just use Shadow Flame and clear the board. But, how does he do it?
Yeah, if he plays Shadow Flame, if his own Boombot gets caught up in the mess, then well, it's still actually kind of likely that it's a 50-50 whether or not hits a Twilight Drake. Twilight Drake being at 1 health in that scenario.
Yeah. I'm kind of imagining a scenario where he can, like...
Oh, he can attack it and then attack with the Boombot and then shut
Oh.
Okay, this is a way to do it. Yeah.
I was
long as Dr. Boom did
I was
that.
imagining that he power overwhelming his Ancient Watcher and then Shadow Flamed it.
Yeah. That's true.
That was actually a really clean way to do it. And you could still, if he like Boombot damage to the face, you could have played Molten Giant.
This is actually quite a bit of a risky way to do it because he attacked in with his Dr.
Yeah.
Boom. If his Boombot hit one of the other 2 Boombots, which was a 2 and 6,
Right.
so 1 and 3, and then it went back and did a 1 and 2, and then rolled a 3 or 4, so basically another 1 and 2 to kill his Dr. Boom, he would have been screwed.
I think this way from Lemurian, what it does do is it gives him the opportunity to play Ancient Watcher as a defensive mechanism with Sun Fury.
Yeah.
But I wonder what you'd rather have, though, the 7/7, now that your opponent played both Big Game Hunters, or would you rather have the Ancient Watcher with more flexibility to be defensive, but you still have the Dr. Boom on board. So it's one of those things where I think you have to weigh it. It could be that Lemurian doesn't want to invoke the Wrath of Molten Giants.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it also...
Or it also could be that he ran out of time and he had to make a
Yeah,
play.
that's true.
He didn't have time to set up that Ancient Watcher combo because he's risking of like getting roped.
It's also very likely that it would not have been anywhere near a 7-7. because the Boombot's were on the other side of the board. It
Right.
Could, it
Could
could
have
very well
killed.
be nothing.
Could have been killed.
Yeah.
And he would have lost everything.
Yeah. Or it could have gone down to 3 health and just played in Hellfire. Like there was, I think this was like the best middle ground between all the plays. Like the most consistently
that's
good.
really curious.
Hmm.
So Ignite is inviting his opponent to attack in, and then he wants to blow his opponent's board out of the water, right?
Yeah. He wants him to overextend.
Yeah. But I was expecting him to play Lotheb or a Sludge Belcher to contend, and instead he just Hellfires and floats 4 mana.
Yeah.
And Lemurian's like, okay, well, you've played both big game hunters. And, Ignite says, you're not going to heal me for anything, so I think I'm going to have at least Molten Shadow Flame at the very bare minimum.
You only play 1 Molten Giant here. There's never a world where you play 2 Molten Giants here unless you also play Lotheb.
Yeah, or if you know your opponent has no Shadow Flames remaining in his deck.
Yeah, but in this situation, when you haven't...
Twisting Nether.
I mean, there's also... Okay, so it was Lemurian who used 1 Shadow Flame. So Ignite has not used any.
Yep.
So, there's at
Well, you
least
said
1.
there's never a world, then we just suddenly set up like 5 conditions.
No.
So
there is
there's-
never a world.
Where you play 2 Molten Giants.
In this situation, he knows that his opponent hasn't played Shadow Flame. The only way you play double Molten Giant is if, in my opinion, this isn't like blah 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 blah. I'm adding on a lot of like, in my opinion, on a Tuesday.
There's no world on a Thursday afternoon
If you had a good breakfast that day.
So
at 2:41 p.m. PDT. In this world, do you ever play? He didn't tap for an extra card, so he's really valuing his health a little bit more. It also can get to the point where he doesn't want to tap too much. There is a Faceless Manipulator, by the way, so there has to be a Leroy Jenkins in this deck.
Yeah, but haven't seen Emperor Thorson yet. So if it is Leroy and not
Watch it
Arcane
be
Golem.
like, South Sea deckhand. You're like, you can't even charge it unless you have Jiraxis.
Well, I mean, everybody knows how powerful the turn 10 Jiraxis coin South
I would love it if he
not
had
even coin. You wouldn't even need coin.
Yeah, it's true. I would love it if he had something super ridiculous, like 2 Faceless Manipulator
Yeah.
and a Stone Tusk Boar. And so he puts 2 Power Overwhelmings on the Stone Tusk Boar and then double copies it for 33 damage. Or 27 damage.
Insane.
Hey, taps into a threat. And he's only going to play one of these taunts play one of these and taunt. So that way he can set up a defensive line. So it seems like Lemurian's really been favoring a lot of the defensive line. He can't play Twilight Drake now. Because if he plays Twilight Drake, he acknowledges he made a mistake.
Yeah. Indeed. I just suck it up and play it anyway.
Now, if I was playing against Chang, I'd be worried about Black Knight here. Be like, he has Black Knight and Kazan and Ooze and Harrison and Twisting Nethers. Like, well, you just beat me, sir. Congratulations.
And who knows? He didn't even see like
Right.
8 cards of Chang's deck. Those 8 cards could all be just tech cards.
Exactly. Ignite, also a little bit worried about the possibility of just like playing Mountain. If you tap that Giant and Sludge Belcher, you die to his Silence with like a little bit of damage.
Yeah. I think it might be time for double 5 drop.
Right now, there's 11 damage on board, and you're at 15 health. If you play a Sludge Belcher and an Antique Healbot, you're at 23 plus 7, so you're at effectively 30 health. That seems to be one of his best courses of action. Lotheb also denies him from being able to play spells.
Yeah.
So if he has Silence, he needs to Silence plus have Power Overwhelming, which is exactly what he has. I don't think Ignite's put him on that combo, though.
No. There's not really anything that he's done so far in the game that could ever give you a read that he'd be playing any sort of combo.
Lotheb is more damage, so it allows him to maybe use his Dark Bomb a little bit more effectively, trade onto the board, be defensive, play the Mountain Giant.
Yeah. Because both essentially serve the same purpose of just keeping him alive.
Now, if I'm Lemurian and I saw my opponent's play, would you be tempted at all just to straight up go for Faceless Manipulator on the 8/8? Or is that still too risky?
I think it's still pretty risky. The one thing, okay, so this is really reaching But you go back to that turn where he didn't tap before he played Molten Giant to Shadow Flame. Does that indicate that he does not have second Molten Giant? It's really reaching, but it's a read that you can make.
Faceless is just straight up greed, but if he has Faceless, you have to at least note that it's within the possibility that he has the Leroy Jenkins combo.
Yeah.
So he played. Okay. So he played the Twilight Drake after, but
At least he did the mistake
yeah,
emote.
at least he acknowledged his mistake here.
It's justified.
Iron Beak Owl, Hellfire, and Dark Bomb, and that's
Full board clear, and you're left with a 5-2.
But
Here,
then he dies to Leroy and Powerwhelming Faceless.
you can't do that though. He would die to Arcane Golem, Powerwhelming Faceless.
That's true. Well, you know, any Charger plus Powerwhelming Faceless is already at least guaranteed 8 damage because you copy the power. So, well, there's no zero attack charge.
So many.
So if it's 1 attack, it's bare minimum 10 damage.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're technically.
Can you
could be a
imagine if
zero-attack
Blizzard
charge.
just trolled everybody and just made a 0 mana charge? Or sorry, not 0 mana, 0 attack charge.
What would it have to be? Target dummy? Target dummy would be a
Target
fantastic
dummy.
target.
God.
There is actually a possibility where target dummy could have charge. If there's a Lore Walker Cho on the board and you steal a preparation and you use preparation to prep out your charge spell as a warrior. Boom, there you go.
Taunting here would be an incredibly impressive read. Wow, that is very impressive from Ignite. Fortunately, Hellfire's got something to say about it.
Is there any way that he draws? If he had tapped there, he would have had. No, there was no way. No way he'd be able to play all his mana though, with the silence. But Hellfire's still.
Now Lemurian's like, well, what if he has Leroy Powerwhelming?
If I put it in, anybody could have put it in.
I mean, that it is possible, right?
Yep.
So now you just plop the Giant. Or I guess you can play 5 drops too. Double 5 drops is actually really nice. So you can have some semblance. But Giant is sort of representing lethal, right? Because you can taunt it up with Defender of Arcs and kill. Versus you don't get the guarantee. I still think Antique Healbot and Sludge Belcher is just really safe. Yeah. Does Ignite just know that he's playing combo? This is actually really impressive at this point. And Leroy just happened to be drawn.
There it is. I mean, just with Leroy and Faceless,
He
though.
needs Thorson now because he has
Yeah.
silence.
Yep. Yeah, if he plays Thorsan, he could fit all of that into one turn. Silence, Leroy, Faceless, and Power Overwhelming. Because Leroy and Faceless would cost 4, Iron Beak Owl will cost 1, Power Overwhelming cost 0.
6 cards remain, by the way, and there's not many cards remaining. He needs Emperor Thorson. But if he has Emperor Thorson, he can't even play it because he might die. He has to play like a Sludge Belcher here.
Yeah.
And then realistically, like, Faceless Manipulator, a defensive card, and then just, like, wait for Emperor Thorson.
And you can't preemptively silence because if you've been
just
keeping
taunt it
track,
again.
you can just taunt it up again, and then you effectively wasted it. So this is a really rough spot. He taps, puts him at 7.
Yeah.
I
You
mean,
put a
he'd be
7 with a Sludge Belcher.
Yeah.
I still think you can get away with tapping once here. Unfortunately, we know that. And does he know that? He's going to use his Face Manipulator, so the jig is up.
I mean, Leroy Power
Oh,
Overwhelming can
man.
still be.
That is a sick card, considering that he's got the ability to really dig a little bit deeper in his deck and still play the Antique Healbot. But Faceless should give away all intentions.
I mean, to be fair, there also is some players who have been vocal about saying that Faceless Manipulator is good even without combo.
Sure.
It used to be run in handlock all the time.
Mountain Giant turn 4,
Yeah.
Faceless turn 5.
Yeah. But
Kill turn 6.
nowadays, that fad has sort of dissipated. And it seems like it's only run when you have combo. And that's just the first thing you assume whenever you see a faceless. So.
Right.
Ignite's got to be expecting, if he wasn't already expecting burst from the hand, then he's got to be expecting it now.
I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't just play the antique heal bot and be super ultra defensive. You're in a really good spot. The Mountain Giant will still be playable next turn. If you do tap, you can play Mountain Giant and something next turn easier, but antique heal bot seems to be the best middle of the road play. I guess you could be worried about Shadow Flame, though. Actually, that's exactly what he's worried about.
Ancient Watcher. So what cards does he have left in his deck?
Wait, if he has a... Oh, I was thinking if he had Mortal Coil, that's actually... Would that be lethal? No, it wouldn't have been. It was really close. Really close.
Yeah, he would have been able to do 9 plus 3. So he would have done 2 damage off.
Would have been 10 plus 3, right? Leroy's power.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
So it would
Leroy's.
have been 1 damage on.
I mixed up Leroy's mana cost and his attack.
Right.
So yeah, it'd be 6 attack for 5 mana instead of 5 attack. You're right.
So he's
1
working
damage
on...
off. He would be.
He's working on effectively 7 health plus 9. So he's already at 16 health. His opponent has 10 damage on board plus Dark Bomb. That's 13. So he still can tap, hypothetically speaking.
Mm-hmm.
He can tap and feel like he survives. But his opponent could have the Iron Beak out. Has Ignite used both Iron Beaks? He has.
Pretty sure he's used both, yeah.
So he can't get past as easily without just direct removal like Siphon Soul. I would have to imagine that Emperor Thorson wants to come down this turn. I think Lemurian's just waiting if he can tap or not. And if so, what is he tapping for? And even as a follow-up, is he just going to die from tapping?
Doesn't feel safe enough. Maybe he's just making the plays that he knows are obvious.
Well, he also knows that this is the last taunt giver, right? Both Sun Furies and the Defender has been used.
Yeah, unless there's 2 defenders, which is very unlikely. But stranger things have happened. So it feels like Antique Healbot is a must here. You preemptively silence your Sludge Belcher.
Right.
You're at 14 health. What do you do with the remaining 5 mana?
Well, you play Ancient Watcher and Dark Bomb the 2-1, I guess.
Yeah. There's actually no way that he can clear off the Thorsan here.
It's fine, though. They're basically almost at no cards. You're worried more about the 5/5 body. He's going to have he has like 3 cards left in his deck.
Yeah.
He's got 2 cards in hand. It's not about the mana cost. You can pretty much play anything at this stage. It's about the 5/5 being the most big threat here.
Yeah, that's what I was mostly referring to, is the fact that no matter what, he's going to take that 5 damage next turn.
Right.
So how scared is he?
He can also Dark Bomb and save some damage onto his Sludge Belcher and play his own Thorson, but I think he has to be really careful. He has to play the Antique Healbot this turn. I'd be so surprised if he did it. Oh my goodness! He's dead!
He's what? Okay. Well, it looks like Lemurian is going to take game 2. That's a really interesting choice. You'd think the Faceless Manipulator would give away.
So we can talk about if that's interesting or not, but the fact is it was the game-losing choice.
Yeah.
He had the Antique Healbot, and I can imagine that Ignite at this point is furious.
Yeah.
He played around this. Maybe, I guess at this point, he played around this unwittingly.
Yeah. That's how it seems.
Because it seemed like he didn't understand that was within his opponent's range. But he played around that unwittingly for about 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Only just to throw it away in 5 seconds because he just chose not to play this Antique Healbot.
Yeah, I mean,
we have the pleasure of knowing that information.
There also could have been the read that he thought it was Arcane Golem.
But Ignite goofed.
Yeah. If it was Arcane Golem, he actually would have been 1 damage off lethal. So he might have been thinking, well, if it's Arcane Golem...
Oh, you're right.
Arcane Golem Power Overwhelming, he'll be 1 damage off for killing
Arcane Golem.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not Leroy Power Overwhelming.
Because he 1 overkilled. He did 10 damage to 9 health, so if it was Arcane Golem, then he would have been alive.
Right. And to be fair, Thorson is more damage on the board. It's better pressure. It helps make his hand a little less clunky, too. Mountain Giant kept getting hard to play, and he would have been able to squeeze in a little bit more.
So maybe all those reads were genius reads. He just read the wrong card.
He in the end put him on the wrong charger.
Yeah.
The Leroy over the Arcane Golem. That wraps up game 3 up 2-1 for Lemurian. If he wins this, he goes on to face up against Trump. And, you know, if Ignite taps out here, he's got to win with his handlock against the Warrior and then the Mage against the Warrior. Two very doable scenarios.
Yeah. Unlike Tua in the last series, these guys only qualified once. They only played once. So if they lose here, they have no chance. Well, Lemurian could play in the last chance qualifier because he is from NA, but this is actually Ignite's last chance to make it into the Legendary Series LAN Finals.
That's right.
It's a must-win situation for him. It's a must-win situation for a lot of these players if they want to join us.
Yeah. I think if I was Ignite, who's lost 2 in a row with handlock, I think I'd just, like, you know, swap out just for my own fresh mentality's sake.
Yeah.
Maybe it could be one of those things where if you shift your mind a little bit too often, you start thinking in the wrong mentality. But I would mind switching to the Mage. You need to win against both anyways. Just, you know, break the cycle of losing a little bit, switch it up, and go against Warrior with Mage, see what you got.
Yeah.
Especially if it's Freeze Mage. I'd be in favor of that.
Do you ever have nightmares about Hearthstone?
I can't say too often that I dream about Hearthstone, which is pretty interesting considering how much it consumes my life.
Yeah.
But whenever I do have dreams, it's often good dreams.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
And that's where I'll stop explaining my dreams.
I sort of have.
How about you, TJ? Do you have nightmares?
I sort of have an interesting mix. Some are dreams, some are nightmares.
Okay. So what's the most recent dream?
The most recent one was whenever I get close to like a big week of casting. Like I had the nightmare about Dr. Boom, which I told a long time ago, which was right before I had to cast for like almost 6 days in a row.
Oh, you had a dream that Blizzard released a 7.7 that created 1-1 boom bots?
Exactly.
Well, I got bad news for you, TJ.
No, this one though,
boom bots may explode.
This one was before this week because I mean we have 4 days of casting ahead of us, so it's a lot of Hearthstone. So I did a lot of prep work. So Hearthstone was on my brain. Well, in the dream, I was walking down this dark hallway. Okay, and on the walls of the hallway were pictures of famous paintings. Which as I was walking down the hallway, I just saw that they were famous paintings. I didn't really think anything of it. But as I took a closer look at these paintings, they were famous paintings, but on these famous paintings were Reynad's head. And it wasn't just Reynad's face. It was the photoshopped version of Reynad's face where he doesn't have any eyebrows. So imagine, if you would, famous paintings like Mona Lisa. But instead of Mona Lisa's face...
But it's Reynad's face?
It's Reynad's face. And not only Reynad's face...
And it's how, like, Reynad's forehead is always looking at you?
Yeah, exactly. It's like a face ingrained in Reynad's forehead.
Yeah.
And so then I'm really creeped out already as I'm walking down this hallway and seeing these pictures of Reynad's face with no eyebrows. I get to the room at the end of the hallway, the giant red door. I get in, there's a big swivel chair. You know how it is in movies. And it swivels around. And it's actually Reynad with no eyebrows.
Oh.
And he talks to me. And instead of like his normal voice that comes out, it's the text-to-speech voice that he uses for his donations. And it said, I'm not going to even try to do a text-to-speech impression, but it says, I'm not going to miss lethal this time.
And that was a nightmare?
That was a nightmare.
That sounds like...
for some people, that might be...
Very close to my dream, but I reflected on that very positively.
No, for most people, it would be a dream, but Rain actually had clothes on, so for me, it was a nightmare.
Gotcha. All right. That just happened.
All right, well, we're going to move into match number 4 here.
Well, thankfully, Reynad doesn't play today or any of the week. He actually avoided Redemption Tournament by winning his week.
It was
playing spectacularly, and you know what? As much as we joke about Reynad, he also does have some pretty good game with the ladies.
He does.
I just want to throw it out there. A lot of people kind of mess with him. It's easy to poke fun.
His self-deprecating humor might give you other ideas,
but he's quite the charmer. I've seen him work.
Yeah,
and magic.
In a weird way, this was Reynad's way of doing less work. By winning the first time around, he made it so that he didn't have to compete.
He's so lazy, he didn't want to go through the other rounds.
Yeah.
That's another way to look at it.
It's kind of funny.
Ignite is definitely a person who's had to do the hard work. He has played a lot of qualifiers, and he is on his last life. He's going to queue up Handlock one more time, and he is going to have to win against the Silver Patron Warrior.
Yeah. Now, I'm a little surprised. I mean, you mentioned earlier, since he lost 2 games in a row with Handlock, you'd be inclined to switch it up, especially when your tournament life is on the line. You think that you want to put your tournament life in the hands of, like, your favorite deck. And I would say that Mage would be Ignite's favorite, Mage or Priest. But I guess he's feeling pretty comfortable with the Handlock right now.
Yeah.
He's in the groove. He's played 2 games with it, so he feels comfortable with this deck inside and out. And it actually is the strongest deck overall against what he knows is Patron Warrior left over from Lemurian. So even though he knows he has to win against both, or he knows that he has to beat it eventually and he has to take a win with both of his decks against Grim Patron Warrior, you might as well get the easiest win out of the way first to maybe try and swing some momentum, put some tilt on your opponent.
Sure.
That type of thing.
I wouldn't mind playing the Frothing Berserker here. Because your opponent can't really deal with it, and you want to get in some good damage as well.
Yeah.
I can understand that you want to draw, like that's the really big priority, and setting up like minions onto the board so that way you get values okay. But what is your opponent going to do if you drop Frothing Berserker?
It's true. Can't Dark Bomb it.
I guess
Can't
you could
Hellfire.
silence it. They drew his Iron Beak. Also, if he Mortal Coiled, he gains an attack.
Yeah.
I guess maybe it's a little bit too aggressive. Like this deck's not Hunter, it's Patron War. So you go for the draw. I mean, it's more like Miracle Rogue than any other deck. You draw cards, you execute your combos, you try to stay alive. But if there's anything I remember from Miracle days, it's that it has a very tough matchup against Handlock.
Yeah.
And one of the ways you have to do it is to be very preemptive on the board.
Did you ever watch Dora the Explorer when you were younger?
A little bit. I think I was more of an Arthur guy.
That was way before Dora the Explorer.
Yeah, but I mean,
Showing your age a little bit there. Yeah. No, but in Dora the Explorer, she has, I'm pretty sure it's Dora the Explorer, she has this like segment where it's,
you know how I feel about my age.
where she's trying to overcome a, she's trying to overcome a challenge, and she says like,
Really? Is that what she does?
like, you can't, and she's trying to get over a river, and you can't go over it, can't go under it, we can't go around it, so we got to go through it.
Through the bridge?
That's the same way I approach.
Oh, through the river.
That's the same way I approach Hearthstone. Is the way Dora the Explorer approaches a river. You eliminate all your options by saying it in the cadence of like a song. Okay?
And then you consult a magical map that just jumps out of your backpack.
Yes. But that's a secret between me and you. So like when you're dealing with a Frothing Berserker, it's a handlock.
You have to go through it?
Exactly. You play cards that just you can't deal with it that turn. You can't ignore it. So you go through it. You play cards that are just going to deal with it. It's the way I eliminate things in Hearthstone. Make a game out of it, like Dora the Explorer. Lesson learned. You're welcome.
You had me at river.
Good.
Too wet.
That's not a pun. You can't just put his name at the end of a sentence and call it a pun. Water bottle. Too wet. Drop mic.
But I'm not a rapper. By the way, Lemurian just passed on turn 4. No armor up, no nothing.
That's awkward.
He didn't even did he even rope? I don't think he even roped. He just like ended the turn. That was really peculiar.
Yeah. I mean, there's some times where I'm like clicking the board when I'm thinking and I accidentally
Like, I don't know, man. Some of these turns have been. I want to say that I feel like it's been some of the connection issues. 'Cause I know some people have had some server stability problems, but I'm really worried because like that's a really big deal to miss an early turn. Now Handlock got a turn to set up.
Shields up.
He used his execute. How does he get past his giant now? He's got to go the hard way.
Yeah, and an already tough matchup
Right.
every turn,
Well,
and every point of damage matters.
He just drew a way to draw a lot of cards. Holy cow.
But if he does this, he sort of ruins that a little bit. This allows him to trade, like Cruel Taskmaster, throw the Armor Smith in, and then
Right.
Deathbite. But he could Acolyte, Whirlwind, and Battle Rage. He'd be taking 10 damage on the backswing from this Mountain Giant. But it would draw him,
But his opponent's not
4
bursting.
cards.
Right.
Yeah. 4 cards is a hard thing to pass up. Especially since you deal with this now, you're taking 8 damage anyway. All of a sudden you have no board except for a cool Taskmaster fighting up against a Sunfury Protector, and you've just gone through. Like you only have 5 cards remaining, and none of those cards are that extremely proactive, you know? 2 cards is okay.
Yeah. It's like a value rage.
Yeah. We say 2 cards is okay, but 2 cards is actually pretty fantastic for 2 mana. I mean, you compare it to
Right.
cards like Solemn Vigil or Arcane Intellect. Arcane Intellect is just straight up 3 mana. Solemn Visual, on average, I'd say, is probably 3 mana when it's played. Depends if you're ahead or behind on board state.
Right. I'm just worried because it feels like Lemurian missed a really important turn, and now Ignite's just kind of running away with the game. He's got like bomb after bomb in terms of like dropping big minions that's going to be hard to deal with.
Mortal Coil is pretty good, I'd say.
Well, the thing about Mortal Coil is that he has to play something from the hand. Oh! Wow!
Mountain Giant is pretty good, I'd say.
That is the nuts.
Indeed, the epitome.
Okay, well, he's got the Grim Patron.
But, I mean, Grim Patrons aren't necessarily that effective against Warlocks unless you're comboing into, like, a kill. Or you're in a position where you have to board clear. And a lot of times, Grim Patron's not going to allow you to board clear. It's going to allow you to put pressure to maybe set up, like, a following turn kill with Frothing Berserker Warsong Commander. But Frothing Berserker Warsong Commander are the 2 most important cards in this deck against Handlock. Because those are, like, your only win conditions most of the time.
Well, Sludge Belcher stalls for a lot of health. But Ignite can just start pushing onto the board. Now, he is aware that turn 8 is the turn where you go for the big plays. So you just have to prioritize not playing minions that die to the Grim Patron. Sludge Belcher is a great way to stop it.
Yeah. Just got
less
word.
Inner Rage?
Yeah. Just got word that Lemurian has not been in contact with the admins complaining about lag or anything like that. So it might have just been an honest mistake.
Straight up pass because he was taking too much and he just forgot to armor up.
Yeah. Or even like I said earlier, there's sometimes where I'm just clicking on the board while I'm thinking and accidentally have a hand spasm and click the end turn button.
Oh, that stinks.
Yeah. That's why you keep your cursor over on the left side of the board when you're playing in an important tournament match.
And you keep your enemies closer.
Okay. That was scary.
I think that's the same.
Yep.
Okay, so the thing about the Acolytes that they finally were able to draw, and they drew into really great cards. In fact, those are 5 of your win conditions. I think it's just a little bit too expensive, so he'd like to get Thorson out.
He's Thorson or a lot of activators.
Right.
But he's starting to run out. He's already been through, well, he's been through one world.
Would he Loatheb and then silence the owl with the owl and just go like super duper ham? Just hit face, 15 damage?
It depends if you have a reason to go ham. I don't think there's a huge reason to go ham here.
You might have lethal next turn.
Only if he has lethal next turn would he go ham, and I don't think he did.
Well, if he silences now and hits for 4, he puts him down to 17. And then he has 8.
Oh, yeah. No, you're right.
12, 20.
He would have had lethal if he silences Ancient Watcher the following turn.
Does he still have lethal? 8, 10, 12, 22. No, but it is a safer play.
Yeah. Yeah. Even though this deals with the Sludge Belcher, that's not the draw that he wanted to see.
No, I think this was the... I mean, it's okay, but... Oh, man, he's got some big opportunities. He just needs, like, the commanding shout, and he clears...
A commanding shout or even, like, an execute would be okay.
Execute.
Because he could Warsong Commander double Frothing, throw in the Unstable Ghoul into whatever he's going to execute it, and then have 2 huge Frothings that both have charge.
Well, I have to imagine Big Game Hunter is the ideal way to deal with Gromosh. Followed by, I would assume, another Sludge Belcher here.
Yeah.
And I'd like suiciding the Owl so it's less liability against the Grim Patron.
Yep. That's one of the biggest tips for playing against Grim Patron Warriors is either after turn 6 against, if you see a Thorsan come down early, or every turn from after 8, you want to try and use your 2 attack or less creatures to trade as much as you possibly can. Just because those could end up being liabilities, not even just for Grim Patrons, but a 1 health target like that could just be fodder for Frothing Berserkers to get stronger, the more creatures that you have left on the board.
Almost out of time.
Yeah, if Lemurian had a Whirlwind, How much damage could he generate with Warsong Commander and Frothing Berserker?
Well, not enough right now because of the Sludge Belcher.
Yeah, it's
But if he did have Whirlwind, then it'd be essentially 6 damage from Whirlwind per each Frothing Berserker, and it'd be 8 damage per Whirlwind for each Frothing Berserker, and 7 damage per Whirlwind from each Frothing Berserker for the Cruel Taskmaster. So it'd be a total of 15 damage per each Frothing Berserker with 8 creatures on the board, then 7 creatures on the board. So they'd both be at 17 attacks. So it'd be 34 damage.
No, that's too bad then.
It really is too bad. That's like an ideal scenario.
What a shame.
And actually, he would have mana to play all that. No, he wouldn't. Because he'd have to have 9 mana and then just 1 Whirlwind. So if you take out that, it would just be 10 damage per each with just a Whirlwind. Which would only be 20 damage, which is a lot less sexy.
And he's going to Suicide this in. Unfortunately, it stops after 1 chain. He's going to survive, hypothetically, by 1 or by a few HP. Kill off the Mountain Giant. Got 9.
He's dead.
Oh, he signs the
With the silence on the Ancient Watcher.
That's right. So it ends up being the kill here, and the series is tied 2-2.
Going to a game 5. All right. Well, these guys are going to go head-to-head with their third and final decks. It is going to be the Grim Patient Warrior from Lemurian versus whatever Mage Ignite chose to bring. We're guessing it's Freeze Mage.
It's a tough matchup. I mean, this is the deck that the Patron Warriors fear. Handlock is just one of them. Freeze Mage is certainly up there as well, but Freeze Mage still can be pressured enough if you put like a Frothing Berserker and they just don't happen to have the Frostbolt. You're just taking a lot of damage.
Yeah.
I think Handlock is just one of the scariest for sure.
Yeah, Freeze Mage isn't as scary because you can play it really slow. You can basically play it sort of like Control
you
Warrior.
Have Armor.
Yeah, you have Armor Smiths and you have your Hero Power, which are the 2 main tools that Control Warrior uses. Also, like Executes are good for like Doomsayers. I think Grim Patron Warrior sometimes is even better off. They don't run Shield Mated, they don't run Shield Block, but they have a lot more burst potential at earlier intervals. And they have more ways to activate their Armor Smiths.
But they do have limited win conditions, which the Mage can deal with.
That's
so
true.
If it's like, you just lose your Grim Patrons to the Flame Strikes, and then, the Doomsayer just goes off once and kills off, like Frothing Berserker. So what do you have?
Yeah.
You have Gromosh, and then Gromosh might not be enough.
The way I usually play the matchup is just to armor up as much as possible. Mix armoring up with card draw, and then eventually get a big Frothing Berserker to pop, and then Grom or other weapons to finish.
All right, well, let's find out who's going to the semifinal up against Trump. Between these two guys, the Patron Warrior has actually lost twice.
Yeah.
Hunter is it undefeated so far today?
Yeah, Hunter is undefeated. I believe it's 3-0 thus far today. I mean, it's small sample size, but still, it's had a lot of success.
4-0.
Now, going over these guys' score in the actual matches that they played during the regular season, they're very similar. They both finished third/fourth. We didn't have a third-place match. They both finished third/fourth. And they both had very similar overall game scores, where Ignite had a total of 6 wins, 6 losses, and Lemurian had a total of 7 wins, 4 losses. So overall, Lemurian had a better game score, but they both made it to the same place, and they both had pretty equal opponents. Lemurian had 2 series against Kalento, one which he won 3-0, and one which he lost 1-3, and Kalento eventually ended up winning. Whereas Ignite got 0-3 by Kabi and had victories over by 3-1. So they both lost to the eventual winner. So they had very similar runs to their respective Legendary Series regular weeks. So I'm not surprised this went to Game 5. And this is a close contested matchup.
This is not the Freeze Mage. This is Patron Warrior versus Mech Mage.
This is a Mech Mage that seems like a top-sided Rag. Interesting.
He is going to need a really good start.
Fel Reaver.
This is my favorite thing in the world right now. Put Fel Reaver in any deck and just win.
Fel Reaver scares the crap out of me.
Fel Reaver's amazing, dude.
I know. You showed me the ways before the broadcast.
It's kind of all I want to do right now is just to teach people the ways of the Fel Reaver. Do you interrage this so that you just stop taking damage?
Yeah, it's one of the main tools of interrage. You can assume that this is aggro-oriented deck because he played Clockwork Gnome. You need to stop the bleeding.
He
early on.
actually just wanted the stealth for the Antonitis and Freeze Mage.
Yep.
That's why he played the Clockwork Gnome.
Yeah, definitely. Could be a Gazlo mage deck.
Gazlo, oh my god. I haven't seen Gazlo in a viable deck ever.
Play Clockwork Gnome just so you can get the spirit parts for the inevitable Gazlo.
So you can draw like more Clockwork Gnomes to get more Gazlo.
It's genius. Eventually, you'll get enough Blinktrons
Oh my god.
to kill your opponent with weapons.
My favorite
That's
is
the win
actually,
condition.
I'm actually sad that Junkbot wasn't a good card. Because Junkbot has some of the funniest attack sounds ever.
I've actually never even heard Junkbot attack.
He says, "Eat junk, punk," and he attacks, but he says it in a robotic voice, which is hilarious. He's like, "Eat junk, punk."
The funny thing about that statement is that nobody's going to believe you, but nobody can refute you because you're the only person in the world who's actually heard the Junkbot
No,
attack.
I one time got in an arena, and because it was like that, or like Doomsayer, or like Ice Block, and like those are all really terrible cards.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, Junkbot's at least a minion.
Mhm.
And so I was like, okay. And it was really fun to play with it because I had a couple mech warpers.
Okay. I was thinking about putting in my patented famous
Hobgoblin.
Hobgoblin Warrior. You knew what I was going to say before I even
know.
said it. That's how famous it is.
That's right. Everyone in the world knows it.
It's true.
Do you set up the Acolyte here because it can't get contested easily? It's most likely going to draw you a couple cards.
You have 2 Death Bite.
You do have 2 Death Spites.
Um,
And then Oirtron's going to absorb one of them.
yeah. I think that this is tough. If I had only 1 Death Bite, I'd probably just play the Acolyte. But this makes its decision tough because if you coin out a Death Bite this turn, your next turn all of a sudden becomes awkward again. Like you're either going to play Acolyte and float a mana anyway. So either way the Acolyte's coming down, either way the Acolyte's probably going to get you 1 draw. So even though you have 2 Death Bite, I think I agree with this line of play.
Powering up.
Oh, God. Snow Chugger. Snow Chugger comes out, and he's got 2 Death Bites in his hand.
Yeah. He's going to need to execute that Snow Chugger or something if it comes out.
Yeah.
How does he deal with it? Sludge Belcher, that's one way. But then Sludge Belcher gets fireballed.
How's he going to deal with Fel Reaver? He doesn't even know Fel Reaver's going to come out.
That's right. Fel Reaver is a really unexpected card, but
And
part of what makes Fel Reaver so good is that people are just not prepared for its actual power.
Yeah.
And a lot of people misplay around Fel Reaver, too.
Yeah, they'll try and mill you,
Yeah.
which a lot of times is not the right answer. Sometimes you just got to bite the bullet and remove it. Even though like it's 5 mana 8/8, like they're getting so much value out of it. A lot of times the thing that the player that plays Fel River wants is for you to blow a lot of cards just to try and mill you out because that thing's still going to swing for 8 damage next turn, you know?
Yeah. You kill off this Acolyte too, so I guess you can use the Mech Warper into the 1/2, the Mad Scientist into the Acolyte, because you don't mind the Mad Scientist actually dies. You don't want to draw the second Mirror Entity. I actually consider giving health to like the Snow Chugger just so it doesn't. He doesn't want the Mad Scientist to die. All right. I always regret not like letting my Scientist die because I feel like I draw the secret very often. He already has one of them. Yeah, but it is very unlikely to draw the second one.
It's very unlikely unless you say that it's very unlikely.
Oh, so you mean by saying it's jinxed?
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. This Whirlwind, not going to be high impact unless he's able to use it in tandem. So you know what? There might be some merit to just playing like the Unstable Ghoul and then like a Loot Hoarder, letting it Whirlwind come off, and then Whirlwind again the following turn with Grim Patron.
Yeah.
Of course, the flip side is like if your opponent doesn't want to attack into Unstable Ghoul, then you have a Grim Patron plus Whirlwind, you get a lot of board control back. And if you seize the board once from the Mech Mage,
You've seized it for pretty much the whole game.
yeah. The alternative is to go for Death's Bite at setup instead of an Unstable Ghoul.
Yeah.
And you can activate it with a Whirlwind effect by
Yeah.
equipping the second Death's Bite. but you still don't get to swing on those turns. So I still think this unstable cool loot hoarder play is probably his best option here.
Yeah.
Now if we go to that's okay.
I like that. I do.
You're very expressive today.
I
TJ.
definitely
I like that.
definitely had my tea this morning.
So he's gonna end up playing the Fel Reaver here, which is definitely the best choice. I just was wondering if he wanted to keep the Mad Scientist alive, which I don't think he should at all, because you just definitely want to get that secret out.
Yeah.
Plus, at turn 6, it starts getting to like the hard parts where, you know, is he going to be playing a minion of value and getting it off of Mirror Entity?
Yeah.
If he plays Grim Patron, Whirlwind, guess who also gets Grim Patrons?
The mage, because he's got Mirror Entity.
Correct, TJ. There's 2 ways to answer that.
We almost got it right with the secret overlay. We had the secret overlay, but it was on the warrior. And now that we're back on the mage, we no longer have the secret overlay. But the
That's
mage does have a secret.
You get the idea, though. The Mirror Entity is over on the mage's side, which means any minion that Lemurian plays here is going to be working against him. Goes for the Cruel Taskmaster. If he had the execute, can you imagine the beauty? All right. I mean, those are all cards that you're okay to see gone. If you're Lemurian, you'd still like to see, like, you know, his fireballs burn.
Oh, he's going to have 2 chances to draw into an execute. Fireworks, that's not it. No Wish Inventor.
No.
He's taking 10 damage next turn.
Yeah, that's a lot.
To the face. Fireball would have been game over.
Fireball would have been game over. Instead, now he's got Fel Reaver unhindered. He's just going to hit the face.
Yeah.
I love Fel Reaver, man.
Yeah. And he goes ahead and plays Mirror Entity to fit the curve. Now, there would have been some merit there in actually using Frostbolt on the face, just to continuously deny weapon usage. Because his plays have been so awkward. You can tell that the plays have been awkward. You know his hand's filled with weapons. But this play is good because, I mean, there's not much that a weapon would do for him in this situation anyway.
No. Copied it. That's it.
That's game.
Ignite
Wow.
is going to be able to go to the next round. And Fel Reaver! Look at him now, haters. Look at it. He's just going to Fel Reaver the face again.
That's brutal.
And
he's
the
out
last
of
card
cards.
is another freeze card. How poetic.
I mean, this is how Fel River wins games. This is perfect timing. You're supposed to win games right when you run out of cards. Like, that's how Fel River played.
Here's the thing. Whenever you play Fel Reaver, you have to imagine, if this is the last card that I'll ever, or is it the last threat that I'll play, I have to win on this too.
Yeah.
So that's partially why some people don't like playing, because it gives them a heart attack. It's very fun to play it, because if they can't deal with it, that's 16 damage. You don't need that extra fireball because you're hitting him for so much more than you would for any other 5-mana minion. You know, like, if it say it's Lotheb and Lotheb gets 2 attacks in, that's still a 6 damage difference. That's a fireball that you could have done, and you wouldn't have drawn it anyways.
It's true.
So Fel Reaver is absolutely insane if it goes unchecked. It's partially why I think a lot of people were just very like, I'm not sure about it. But when they start seeing it in action, it's an amazing card.
Yeah. I mean, if you think even against BGH, you're like, oh, that was just 5 mana.
Yeah.
Now I saved my deck. Thank you. You did me a favor.
Yeah.
It's exactly how
And
it
if
is.
you are willing to invest 800 dust, you too today can be a proud owner of a Fel Reaver or 2.
Yeah, Ferdinand actually disenchanted all my extra dust that I was saving up.
I did.
Right before the broadcast in order to craft me my
He
second
didn't have
Fel
a
Reaver.
second Fel Reaver. He only had 1. And I created that second one, and we hit the face, and we won. What's our score with Fel Reaver? 3-0.
3-0.
In Legend, right?
In
You're
Legend.
like ranked 300 Legend now?
Yeah, it was 300 Legend, and yeah, we won all 3 games. Played against a fake Trump, too.
Yeah, well, we played against Trump. We're like, oh, my, yeah, this is real Trump, and it was a fake Trump. So.
Yeah, it was a fake Trump. But speaking of Trump, Ignite is going to move on to face Trump in the semifinals. That will happen after our next semifinal. Is actually going to be Savitz versus Chang. This is going to be a really fun one to watch.
Yeah, I want to see what Savitz has. He's the only person to bring a Shaman. He also has Warrior and Warlock. And, of course, we know Chang is bringing that really funky Miracle Warrior, and then he's got that combo Warlock. So that's going to be coming up for you guys in just a few minutes.
Yeah, indeed. So semifinals between Chang and Savitz right after this break.
I have no time for games.